Welcome back to the lab. Thursday morning, bit of a foggy morning outside. We're Z32ing again. So I had been filming doing the install of our fancy teen force effect damper electronic control FEDEC or whatever they call it, the fancy GPS and all that sort of stuff. And you drive down the road and it changes the dampers depending on your speed and if you're high G forces and location and all that. That is basically done. I'll put that video up soon. We're about, I don't know, it's about 6 wires away from that'll work. But I'm doing something more interesting. We're back under the hood. It was all finished, and then we were going to get some more coils, and we were going to proceed with that later on at a later date. But yeah, see, because we were nearly 400 kilowatts. Depends on the dyno, right? Like maybe on a dyno pack it might have actually been, but we didn't see the number on the dyno that we were on, so we don't believe it. And some stuff turned up. The owner came for a visit. Porsche Cayenne, K-A-Y-E-N-E, I believe it's spelt. It probably says on here. From these fellas. Oh, look, it's on the other side of the paper. Come on, where's the organisation? Bim. She got these, the owner got these coils from those fellas with a bit of a kit. So that goes down in the valley. Remember those plastic trims that those, yeah, and insert an appropriate name that's politically correct or incorrect, depending on how you feel. The people that wrecked the engine while trying to fix the engine, they put those plastic trims that go along here and between the camshafts around the wrong way. They had one on the wrong, well, they're both on the wrong side, and a big piece of plastic hanging out the back, and they still didn't figure it out, and they just did all the bolts up and cracked the plastic. And as it turns out, it won't really matter anymore anyway, because you take those bits of plastic out and you put those in there. Now they've put gold, it's not anodizing, right? It's that gold foil, reflective foil tape stuff that we've used quite a lot of on the March, which seems to work. And they've put that on there to reflect the heat away and save the coils from getting damaged by heat. I'm not sure if they've designed this to go that way down or that way. That way would reflect the heat back towards the engine better. That way is going to look prettier when it's installed. We'll find out when we get in there. We'll see which way around they want it done. Going back to when we were trying to get this number here and we didn't quite, that's why it says nearly, the ignition system was letting us down. There's something not quite right. It's not 100%, and it wouldn't let it go more than about 14 psi at boost, and it was not happy. We did find that earlier on, and we got some aftermarket, they're kind of brandless coils, and we put those in. Now those are better. They are definitely better than the stock ones. We tested that and we proved that. But they're still just not quite good enough. And I reckon there was something in the car that someone's done since it left my hands that is contributing to this problem. We've got maybe despite having tested the power supply to the coils, I still think there maybe is something going on there. So we swapped relays. There's a fusible link over here. I made sure all the contacts are all clean, everything in here, to the best of my knowledge, is 100%. There's nothing really that you can find anywhere. So we took the car and we just left it at that, right? We'll deal with that later. I took the car in for a warrant of fitness. When it went in for its warrant of fitness, typical of, what we're talking about, seat belts, ignition and seat belts. Where's the correlation here? Let me finish. Typical of Z32 300ZXs, they have really weak springs on the seat belts, and you'll see that one's absolutely awesome. That's perfect, because that's not a Z32 seatbelt retraction reel in there now. That's an aftermarket one, because that failed at the point where I was getting a warrant of fitness. So while I had the door open, long story, I'll get there. While I had the door open to get in there to change that reel, I found a pair of wires that were in the door that went to a actuator to run the central locking. This car never had that when I had this car, which means I think somebody, I could be wrong, I'm not a detective, but I think someone put an alarm in it while it was out and about in the wilderness in between me and the current owner. And I think that someone potentially took the alarm back out. Now, if you put an alarm in a car, usually you put an immobiliser, and the immobiliser normally interrupts the ignition system somewhere. So I suspect maybe, I could be entirely wrong, I could be completely wrong, but I suspect somewhere in there, someone's cut the wires for the ignition, putting the alarm in there. Then when they've taken the alarm out, they've spliced or joined those two wires back together somehow in some sort of a shonky fashion that's not allowing enough power to get through to allow things to run correctly. I'm going to have a look in the car later, and I'm going to figure that out, whether that's actually happened or not. So I could be right or I could be wrong, and I'm not going to edit this out. If I'm wrong, you'll all see it. Meanwhile, as I said, we've got to take those plastic pieces out that run along underneath the plenum here and put those bits of aluminium in, which involves a plenum pull. Fun. Won't take too long on this car because of the way things are done. It's maybe 20 minutes and that's going to be off and we'll be ready to go. The new coils, the Porsche coils, they actually basically clip straight onto the spark plug. Let's see if I'm trying to pull that out of the air with one hand. It's pretty much impossible to do. There's a nice clip arrangement which attaches onto the end of the spark plug here, and that's how it's secured in the car. There's no other attaching hardware at all. Thought there might be a clip hiding under where the bottom of the coil is there, but no, that's it. That's how it goes. Push it down on the spark plug, click, she's done. The plastic trim that's in that thing at the moment is too high up, so you can't get the coil all the way down and click it onto the spark plug properly, which is why it has to come out. Let's do that. Plenum yanked off, didn't actually take too long. All just to get these black plastic bits out. Replace them with those aluminium bits. Right, so it turns out those aluminium plates go gold side down, apparently. Or it seems that way anyway, at least. But they don't fit. You can't just put them in there without removing a cam cover. It'd be your call whether you take the exhaust ones off, which are much, much harder, but you may have a leak there or something anyway. Or the inlet cam covers, which have got the rubber seal and everything. They're a little bit easier to deal with, but still need resealing. Or just trim a little bit off the edge of them, like another 1.5, 2 mils, and then you will be able to drop them and tip them over and they will fit in there. Except we've found, certainly on the passenger side at least, they don't fit. The holes don't line up. Oh, we took it out. When you put that in there, you can't get these bolt holes in. And the other thing, the bolts that they've provided there are actually too long and they're going to need washers under there to work. Okay, so we got those in. I'll put a washer under the heads of all those bolts. That's all they needed. They were too long because at least this one in the front here was thread bound, so you'd wind it up as tight as you realistically could, and the plate was still floating around. So that's just something to sort out, and you may find that you have to enlarge the holes on our passenger side, your driver's side if you're in America, to make that plate fit. But they're in there, and so then you get the coils, and I'm just checking just before we go to the trouble of putting the plenum on. And yeah, that fits in there and locates as per that. And that's it really, that's that install done. We'll put the plenum on with a couple of bolts and we'll check that, yeah, all the coils go in the holes and we'll be able to get the plugs on and all that sort of carry on. I can't see why you wouldn't, but let's just, before we get everything 100% buttoned up and then find you can't get a plug on or a coil in, and maybe you have to put all the coils and plugs in first and then whatever, you know. Looks pretty in red, doesn't it? Oh, I've got to stand just in the right spot and it gets, anyway. Coils are all in, that's relatively easy, not a big deal. Same deal as with the factory ones, you're never going to change these rear two with the balance bar on there, balance tube, you have to take that off. We'll chop all these plugs off and splice the new plugs, those there, with as much new wiring as possible. Not that any of the old crappy stuff is left behind in crappy in the important spots. PTU bypass is done via a couple of plugs and some wires. You can see the one in the middle here on this 7-pin plug is ground. We don't need that anymore, so we can actually chop that off right back at the harness here. And we can actually delete all this and just splice these blue wires into these appropriate red wires, so it comes out of the ECU and comes up and goes straight to the coils, instead of doing a big dog leg around trying to get rid of all of this length and having a couple of plugs kicking around that really do nothing, achieve nothing. So more cutting and splicing required. Just like that. Might be able to rub out that nearly bit. Might be able to rub that out in the future. I'm assuming it goes. It's all put back together. It should. We've got the battery on. Yeah, battery's on. We don't drain the battery flat anymore now that I've disconnected the stereo. Get it out of gear. Will it go? Yeah, stone cold, see, I haven't started it. Oh, that was too easy. Runs perfectly. Going to stink out the workshop though, isn't it? Stinks already. Okay, so I've got, I've lost it. There it is. I've got a bit of a plan. I'll clean up my bench is the first thing I'll do. It looks a bit odd with those bosses, thread holes for mounting the original coils that aren't there. Some of you clever people have figured it out already. I'm going to make something to go there and polish it up so it looks nice, and we'll put that in each of those holes. I don't think we'll bother with that one at the back corner over there by the battery, because you basically won't be able to see it anyway, and it's only cosmetic. So I'm going to make up 5 of those, and they're a slightly different shape for each one. Polish them up and bang them in there and see how it looks. See if the owner likes it or not, because at the end of the day, that's really all that matters. Oof, got to open the doors. Stinky, stinky. And we've got to organise getting back on a dyno and ensure that we've actually rectified our poor ignition fault. Poor. You know, it made 360 odd kilowatts, so it's not that bad, but we want more. Right. Thanks for watching. Cheers, bye.